tell my computer to continue with the recorded webinar. So a heavy blurs day, I don't know what day it is, nobody does. So real quickly, as you're typing your name in the box here, just type one word and answer this. How are you doing? Take a look at those here in a few minutes. Just kind of a touch base, and I'll explain this here in a little bit. So, so thanks so much. If you have questions, chat box, etc. I think Beth said most of this. So let's just jump in. So here am I mean, it's not all that interesting, except the last point, storytelling is pedagogy. I've been really studying this for a few years and kind of expanding that idea today of storytelling and listening in coaching. So let's jump in and talk about what that looks like. Beth, if you would, if I start to break up, let me know, and I'll stop my camera feed and just talk. I hope that my internet's strong enough here at home. So last night, and I apologize, I changed the webinar from coaching during COVID to listening, because all of the things I was putting together were telling me this is about listening and connecting with each other. Even though we're physically distant, we don't have to be socially isolated. The term's wrong, and you all know that. So let's talk about listening during COVID. Let's jump in. Here are my students. This is an undergrad class I had last semester. These are the questions I'm asking, and I know you are too. As COVID-19 has shut down our classes, how are my students doing? How are our youth programs doing? You may be in a nonprofit somewhere working. How are, you know, the extension programs, land grants across the country. A lot of the work there is out in fields with farmers, or it's teaching nutrition education in person with low resource audiences. How are they doing? This isn't happening right now. How about your colleagues? We used to gather in the room and maybe one person was Zooming in. Now it's quite the opposite. Big question though, before dealing with those you lead in your business, your classroom, your family, how are you doing? I'm going to stop my share here. Or I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat box if I can and see what folks are saying real quickly on the, oh wow, so lots, where is it? Oh, there we go, okay. Lots of comments. Actually, hold on. I'm not finding the window. I apologize. So, yeah, we're using webinar instead of meeting, so I apologize for that. So I can't see it, but I've done this with other groups, so let me just continue. In other groups, I've seen the array of responses. Folks are worried, they're nervous, they're doing well, they're hanging in there. They're stressed, they're joyous. It's across the board. And the reason I want to start with this, though, this question and having us think about this, well, let me tell you, let me show you why we're going to do that. We have to start with ourselves. We have to acknowledge disconnects and connections so that we can move forward. So here, this is what I want to do today. I want to look at starting with taking care of yourself, some practical approaches starting with yourself. I want to look at a few strategies on how to coach during this crisis, and then talk about the specific online engagement, not just communication, but engagement. So let's go. This is my first assignment. You guys, I'm sure, have seen this. If you haven't, then it's a homework. Go do it today. 17-minute video from 10 years ago or so of asking yourself, what's your why? A strong why can get us through anything. And a lot of people I know are shaking their heads yes right now. And again, if you haven't, it's your homework. Before coaching others, know thyself. So can you answer these questions? What's your why? Do you have a personal mission? I ask a lot of my students, my undergrad and graduate students this, but I also work with a lot of colleagues and faculty members. And a lot of them have not articulated a personal mission. It's a powerful exercise. We do it with our 4-H audiences as well. What's on your reading list, your TED Talks? What are you watching? Do you have a learn list? Things that you still want to learn? Professional development? So what's your response to COVID? If you don't have answers to all this, don't worry. I'm not, but start. these are the critical things that you need to do before you're coaching others. Again, whether it's in your business, your classroom, your family. So one thing, this is just, I've seen this so many times. Coaching, mentoring can be life-changing. And right now, this is critical. Your words and action can change people's lives, their mental health. Arguably, if you start with yourself, work on your own EQ, you're going to be better at it, and you'll help more people exponentially. So applause, you're doing that right now in this short Leadership Center video or webinar. So start with yourself. Number 2, a couple strategies. Let's jump in. Here's my list. I just put these together of things that I saw as I've been reading and working and practicing during this last 2 months that could be really helpful. We'll look at each one individually. First, practice transparency and authenticity. Let's be honest. I'm at my home. I'm wearing shorts. It's 80 degrees in Ohio, wherever you are. I hope you're not wearing your pajamas, but if you are, I'll give you some grace on that. But being transparent and honest is critical. It's making the connection, and I'll talk about that in a moment too. But how do you manage when you aren't in control? Remember, everything's really unknown. We control very little, even though we want to. Cognitively, our minds want to believe that we're in control of getting to the office, of teaching our class, meeting with the folks we're supervising or our team. But intellectual humility can take us a long way. It can really help us make better connections and better coaching, particularly right now. COVID has taken givens, the structures that we're used to, our work, homeschool, the expected patterns, behavioral responses of drivers. We were passed on the right, like in front of a grocery parking lot the other day by a car on the berm. Like, what is this guy doing? So give yourself some grace, give others grace. It means a lot. And realize we're not fully in control, but accept that's okay. So Bernstein, I love this guy. He's at Korn Ferry. 90% of the problems leaders face are ambiguous. But here is an opportunity to examine who we are, who we will become, how we want to be known beyond. So he's got a few examples. Move from me to we. That self-preservation thing comes out. It's very normal. We understand that. Maslow's hierarchy, you're back there. But if you increase your EQ, your emotional intelligence, that self-awareness part, then you can move from that self-interest to shared interest. And you can really affect people's lives for the good. There's always a way. Just another good memory thing. Growing up, I had the same stories from my grandparents about World War II and the Great Depression, the sacrifices that were made. And no matter how bad things got, there's always a way. That's a coaching phrase that you can use over and over. I'm doing it with my students right now. Sometimes whenever I've marked up their papers and they're like, I'm not going to get my PhD. It's like, no, you're good, you're good. There's a lot of red ink, but there's a way, and you can fix this very easily. Demonstrate resilience for the people we lead, coach, mentor, and love. Last part from Gary here. Stop looking at the clock. Is it Blur's day? Does it matter? Forget about this thing of how long it's going to last. And I know you're hearing this and reading this. Set those incremental goals, even daily, and then celebrate along the way. It'll be really important. But that intentional congratulations, a little note, even a handwritten note in the mail, or just a thank you during the Zoom can go a long way. Kouzes, if you guys have read him, go back to his 5 forms of mentoring. So I'm just checking the time. Modeling the way, inspiring the shared vision. This works hugely in coaching and mentoring. And the last one, encouraging the heart, particularly right now, I'll talk about this in a minute, about where our people are, where we are, and be really powerful and really important. If you haven't read him, please do Google this up. Another homework assignment, sorry, it's in my blood. 4 questions. So last year, Chad Littlefield and Will Wise with We and Me, these guys spoke at our Community Development National Conference down in Asheville, North Carolina. And they really captured our attention And they've got some great tools. So I don't really know these guys, but I use their tools. So no endorsements here. I just, they've got good tools, so I share. Same with Burnison and others, Kuzis. 4 questions under 4 words each that they say spark engagement, and I say and encouragement. Simple things you can ask when you're coaching. What struck you? Usually we use this as a debrief with a large format group, but you can use it just in a conversation one-on-one. How might we really like this, particularly as we're largely working alone right now, but we can still generate the idea of we working together. I'm working with people all over the country every day, and unfortunately sometimes on the weekends, but even though I'm in my home, and you guys, I know many of you are doing that as well. Number 3 and 4, what else? Really quick way to peel that onion back, and then, well, as Chad knows, so you don't want to do that at the end of every point. What else? What else? And then what brings you joy? And they have a story they tell about, don't balk at this one, because whether you're coaching a CEO, a department chair at your university, a faculty member, a student, or somebody in your family, your teenage son or daughter, this can be a powerful question. It can set a tone for the conversation when you begin with this. It can be really powerful. So here's my favorite question to ask folks when I coach or mentor. So this was in January. We were at the Ohio Stadium, the famous horseshoe. The band room is this huge room inside the walls of the stadium. I was working with their honorary service fraternity for the band. And I asked them, do you have a bucket list? And they kind of looked at me, like a formal, I said, that can be in your head even. And with COVID-19, let me explain this in just a second. This question takes on even greater meaning. The bucket list, implicitly, is a list of what you want to do before you die. But every day, this COVID news is the reminder of death. It's horrible. But can we turn that around? And I said that to the students in the band room. I said, if you have a bucket list, you're thinking about dying. And they're like, what? I said, but hold on. 2016 Book of Joy, the Dalai Lama and Bishop Tutu. Fantastic tome. I probably have it here on my shelf. If you think about your own mortality, you can get some urgency and perspective and gratitude and help you focus. And then Andy Stanley, an author and pastor that I listen to sometimes, talks about numbering your days, some other ancient wisdom from the Jewish tradition. Prioritizing can increase your capacity because you say no to those things that are less important. This can let somebody you're coaching, it can help them free up their time. It can help them, okay, I'm thinking about now what's most important. The personal mission, the starting with why, does the exact same thing. It's just a different way to look at it. So, bucket list, I published an article on this with Fisher College of Business. You can look that up on their Read Today news link. Some good stuff there. All right, so let's jump in and finish up with engaging, not just communicating, but with engaging folks online. And then we'll save a little bit of time to take some questions at the end. I'm pretty sure Emma told me we could do that, or she would catch them out of the Q&A. So, all right, we still got 14 minutes. We're doing good. I'm trying not to hurry, but I'm also trying to really hurry because I've got 4 or 5 hours worth of stuff, and I'm trying to narrow it down as much as possible. It's a crazy thing to do. So can you coach your team over Zoom? We're all doing it, right? But is it effective for our individuals or for teams? Let's talk about that. First, understanding needs. This is absolutely critical. So when I'm talking with faculty colleagues or teachers and talking about how you engage students, I've got a series of videos and seminars on engaging online. And how can you really do that? Not just disseminate information, anybody can do that, but how do you move people up Bloom's taxonomy if we're really trying to teach and engage those students, not just for the knowledge, the content, but the analysis, the synthesis, using that in bigger ways. But the first thing is to know your audience and understand where they are. Remember that some of these folks' basic needs are physiological, bottom of Maslow, the anchor, isn't done. They may be trying to pay their phone bill, and that's their only internet access. We have students like this at Ohio State. I have colleagues in my extension work, and there are rural folks that don't have this fast connection to do what we're doing right now. We're so privileged to be able to do this. It's really an amazing thing. So first, understand that, learn where they are. When it's distant, it's more difficult to notice or see. When you're in person, sometimes you can catch that, or you can have that side conversation after class or after a meeting, and you can, around the proverbial coffee pot, water cooler. So the second point of this slide is that once folks' physiological needs are met, the folks you're coaching or mentoring, other needs change in their weight. So safety, social esteem, self-actualization. Think about safety. What do I mean here? If I'm teaching a class online, and I just watched, so I'm in kind of my home library, my daughter's sitting next to me over here, not this moment, but for the last 2 months, doing her college work as she moved from her dorm room to our dining room. If she answers a question, or chooses an answer in the chat box, you're putting yourself out there, and that can be frightening for some people. Some of our students don't want to do that. It's like putting them on the spot. So we've got to think about this when we're coaching and mentoring as well. Same with the social situation. Missing our colleagues, missing that, just the connections, the human connections. So those things become greater priority-wise than just the physiological needs. So that's just something to be aware of. Back to Chad and the we and me folks. So I call it a mantra, that's my tag, but they call it connection before content. If we just jump in to the content, and you've been on so many of these Zooms, you know what I'm talking about, there's no connection. And so we're missing and disconnecting from a human element. So they've got some tricks that I've used and for a lot of success and fun. The one-word chat box, just checking in and acknowledging how folks are doing, whether that's 5 people or 50 in a larger size webinar. The scavenger hunt idea. So who has something, in their camera shot? There are some tricks you can do with that to look around if it's a smaller Zoom. An engagement question for the chat box. They call this, and you can do this during the unofficial start, just, what's one thing life's teaching you right now? And have just people type that in the chat box or share it if it's a smaller meeting. And then some of the other fun things. Draw an image showing your definition of leadership. Or draw an image of what you're going to have for lunch, and then let people guess what it is. So just some fun things that you can throw out there and do that make it human again. That's important. Point 2, do what you would do in person. And I suggest this as well on my teaching, for engagement in teaching. If you're teaching in class and you come in there, you've got your syllabus and everything else, you explain the objectives of this day's class. You articulate that why, and then relate how activities achieve those objectives. Your teaching activities, your examples, case studies, things you use. In person, you contextualize topics and materials. So do that online. Think about how I started this class as an example, or this webinar. I shared pictures, actual photos from my lexicon of students, of programs that I've done or worked with colleagues on at Ohio State here. And I said, how are these folks doing? My objective was to pull you in and contextualize the context of this coaching webinar. I hope it was helpful and got you thinking about the audiences and the different folks that we reach out to and work with. Coaching during COVID. Let's see, did I miss one now? Okay, so here are the key takeaways. And I think that's my 5-minute warning or 10-minute warning. Oh, we're all right. So key takeaways: know yourself, your why, do your homework if you haven't done it. If you haven't done a personal mission, I've got a 1-page front and back quick exercise that we would be happy to share as well. And you can share this with people you're coaching. I do this if I'm mentoring students or colleagues that are new at Ohio State. I've been around for 25 years. I'll do the personal mission exercise and get them thinking about their why. It can be really powerful. One of my undergrad students did that exercise and came back after, I think it was after Thanksgiving, before the Christmas break, and said, I got the internship. I'm like, which one? It's a really hard one with the IT company. He was so excited. He said, but let me tell you how. He said, during the interview, I articulated my mission, my personal mission. And they just looked at me. They said, no one else. This was in a computer science IT job. They said, no one else has done anything like that. They hired him that day. It was very competitive. I was so excited for him. Good kid. Practice transparency, authenticity, vulnerability. Encourage that bucket list idea, but tell them why it's a positive thing, not a negative thing. Ask the great questions. What else? How might we? And then the listening part. That's been implicit. I started to put big slides in that just said listen. To hear what your colleagues, your family members, where they are, how are they doing, and listen to yourself on where you are and how you're doing. Really important. And then talk about what brings you joy. Jim Kouzes and Posner, encouraging the heart, that fifth part of leadership. It's in a lot of other leadership books as well. It can really, particularly right now, be a powerful thing. So I can't remember more than two things. So if you just had two takeaways on coaching, mentoring, working with folks right now, it would be listen and encourage. I think those are two of the most powerful things you can do right now and for the foreseeable future. Homework, can't leave without homework. Get outside, breathe, take care of yourself first so that you can coach others, mentor others, and help. And then imagine returning to coaching in person, because that's common. But it's just a process, so we have to have some patience. If we were in person, I would love to have a round kind of robin table and ask, what are a couple of things you learned? Have you jot down some points of what's squared away or what's still circling in your mind? Why don't we go with that last one, though, because we can do that, and I think Emma is going to catch some of the Q&As if you want to type those in for clarification or other, and I will leave this up as she's doing that and let her pose any questions that we have. But thank you guys. Thank you so much. Bless you, man, for coming and hanging out with us today for this couple of upcoming webinars. Emma, do we have any questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Raison.
So Ryan, don't call me doctor.
Oh.
I don't do that stuff. Anyway.
So we have a question from Amy, and she says, with a one-to-one coaching Zoom session, do you find that it's easier to connect?
I lost you. Hey, one more time. One, is it easier to connect?
With a one-to-one coaching Zoom session, do you find that it's easier to connect?
Oh, I thought there was a connect using a telephone. Okay. Oh. So if you're, depending on the situation, who you're coaching, what you're coaching for, if it's a subordinate or a colleague or a student, one-to-one's easy on Zoom because you can just talk. You can be pretty informal. I'm standing up right now because this to me is a formal engagement. I want to have my senses going, but I'm going to be sitting down and kicking back and drinking a coffee, just like I would at a coffee shop if I were meeting with somebody.
Well, that is all of the questions that we have currently in the chat box. If the participants have any more, I'm sure that we would be able to connect you via email or answer those questions at another time. So with that, thank you so much, Brian, and Beth, if you want to take it over from here.
Okay, thank you. This concludes our session for today, and this presentation will be made available on our YouTube channel. We'll be sending that to you later today, as well as Brian's slide deck. And Brian, it's been requested that you send the personal mission also, and we'll include that with an evaluation link. Please Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn for current updates and for tips and tricks for maintaining ourselves and our leadership styles throughout this time of uncertainty. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.